Okay, in this video lecture, I'm going to be covering cell differentiation, the final section of chapter 11. And here I'm going to talk about how stem cells become specialized into all the cells in your body. You have over 100 different types of cells in your body. So I'm going to talk briefly about, how does a cell do that? But then I'm also going to dive into what stem cells really are and then talk about benefits and some ethical issues with the stem cell research. So from one cell to many, when you go through development, egg meets sperm, you all started off as one cell. And then you start to go through multiple rounds of mitosis. So that zygote starts to divide into multiple cells and you hit this developmental stage called an embryo. This is where that adult organism is gradually going to be produced from. And during development, cells become more and more different from one another and become specialized to carry out specific jobs, like skin cells and heart cells and liver cells, and they're going to carry out all the processes needed for an organism to live. So we call this process differentiation, when cells become specialized into many distinct cell types. It's very hard to map out in complex eukaryotic organisms because there's a lot of timing going on, genes getting turned on and off. But once that adult cell reaches differentiation, it can no longer turn into another type of cell. So like once it becomes a skin cell, I can't say, nope, I don't want to be a skin cell anymore, I want to be a neuron. It can't go back. Okay, so once the fate of the cell is determined, that's kind of the pathway it's going to stay on in the case of humans. So I threw in some comics here. This is a stem cell, and this is a cell that has reached the end of its differentiation, and it says, but I'm so confused. When I was a little stem cell, I didn't know what I wanted to be either. Or stem cell parental advice. You can be anything you want to be when you grow up. Or this is my personal favorite. You want to be a brain cell? You have to study. You goof off, you'll end up in the rectum. Right? Okay. So let's look into the developmental process. A zygote is the fertilized egg. Okay, egg and sperm meet. It is now a zygote, and this is where all the cells for that inside that zygote are totipotent. Totipotent means that all of those cells can turn into any type of cell for that organism. After about 4 days, the embryo becomes a blastocyst, which is a hollow ball of cells. And then inside the hollow ball, we have a clump of cells called the inner cell mass. That inner cell mass is the embryo. And those cells are not totipotent. They are pluripotent, which means they can develop into any of the body's cell types except tissues surrounding that embryo. So almost totipotent, but not quite. So here's totipotent, right? Fertilized egg. Here's my totipotent stem cells, and then it turns into a blastocyst, a hollow ball with a mass of inner cells here, and those cells are pluripotent. So they try to color code purple with purple and red with red here. Okay, so stem cells are unspecialized cells from which differentiated cells can develop from, and they are found in the early embryo stage as well as the adult body. So you still have some stem cells, but those adult stem cells that you may have, okay, maybe you are not all adults yet, but when you reach adult is called multipotent. So the types of cells formed are limited. Tissues like red blood cells and skin have limited life space, so stem cells produce new cells from these tissues. So for red blood cells, it's found in the bone marrow, and so maybe you've heard of a bone marrow transplant for someone that might have some type of blood cancer. Skin, okay, hair follicles. Embryonic stem cells are pluripotent, so they're in the middle here, okay, and they are more versatile, obviously. They can more range of what types of cells that they can become. So just a diagram showing embryonic stem cells in culture. They are taken from the inner cell mass, and they can become nerve cells, fat cells, skin cells, red blood cells, or parts of the red blood cell. So just a classification summary of the 3 types of stem cells. You have totipotent. The cell is the fertilized egg. They can become any type of cell, and the end result is going to be your new organism. Pluripotent are embryonic stem cells. Almost any cell, like skin, neuron, muscle, fat. Multipotent is your adult stem cell, closely related, like red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets. And you can see that all 3 types of these cells are, part of the circulatory system / immune system. Okay, so now moving on to the frontiers of stem cell research, but maybe you have heard of stem cell research in the news with ethical questions. So here's just one avenue of stem cell research, damage from heart attacks. So when a person has a heart attack, that part of the heart is damaged. Okay, maybe it's, I don't want to say dead, but it's not really doing its job. Same thing with strokes or maybe spinal cord injuries. And if we could, explore stem cell research, we could probably heal people fully from heart attacks or strokes or a spinal cord injury by, with spinal cord injury, basically the connection is severed between neurons. And if you had stem cells, those stem cells could become neurons and re-bridge that gap. So I threw down here a picture of a heart because I'm going to talk about a scientific article I came across using biodegradable Band-Aids. And I don't want to say stem cells, but heart cells that closely match the recipient that had a heart attack. So what they did is they took this biodegradable Band-Aid and they put heart cells onto it. And then they placed it in, I believe it was chicken hearts, okay, don't quote me on that, and watched what happened. So heart cells, they have to talk to each other. They have to communicate. They have to beat in a synchronized way in order to work properly. So that heart part that's been damaged, that's not pumping blood. Those cells, they're damaged. They're not doing the job that they should be doing. And this biodegradable Band-Aid with heart cells slapped onto that damaged area. And the heart cells on the Band-Aid actually started to communicate with the heart cells around the damaged area. And they kind of became part of the heart. And they started to beat in sync with one another. And because this was a biodegradable Band-Aid, the Band-Aid broke down. And now that damaged area, is no longer damaged because those heart cells from the Band-Aid kind of replaced those cells. And now it works properly. So kind of a cool science article. I haven't really looked back into it. This was almost a decade ago. Obviously, I don't think they've done anything with it yet. But what a cool concept to repair damaged parts of a heart after a heart attack. So there are some ethical issues. Research with adult stem cells is fine, okay, because you're not killing the embryo in the process of it, okay? Research with embryonic stem cells, the embryo does get destroyed. And then there's that question of when is life considered like alive, right? And so there's the big ethical question with stem cell research. So you'll have to decide for yourself what you believe that is. But I'm not really going to go much further into that. Just pointing out here's the ethical issue. Okay. All right. So that does it for 11.4 cell differentiation.